All right, Dad, part 2 of Mike Schmidt. Number 20, or tied for number 20. We must pause in our Mike Schmidt tale to tell the heartbreaking story of Tony Lucadello. Well, it isn't all heartbreaking. Baseball's color and wonder comes from people like Lucadello. He was, by all accounts, an extraordinary baseball character, the sort you can make movies about. And my friend Mark Weingartner wrote Prophet of the Sandlots, an extraordinary book about him. He used to come to games wearing a houndstooth hat like he was Bear Bryant. But at the same time, he never liked being seen at games because that would give away his interest level, something he never wanted to do. So he would find a spot behind a tree or behind an outfield fence, or most often in his car to watch the game. But all the other scouts would see that houndstooth hat and they would know he was there. They also knew that if they came early enough, they would find him under the bleachers looking for loose change. The story goes that over the years, Lucadello collected more than $3,000 in nickels, dimes, and quarters, which he used for his goddaughter's college education. He was a lovable guy, didn't drink, smoke, swear, or carouse, but more than anything, he lived baseball. He really did have a sixth sense for finding baseball players. He signed more than 50 of them who made it to the big leagues, including Mike Schmidt, Hall of Famer Fergie Jenkins. He worked with Kansas City Monarchs manager Buck O'Neil to sign Ernie Banks to the Cubs back in the day. He didn't just sign players, he spotted them for other scouts too. Lucadello saw 15-year-old Oral Hershiser and told a fellow scout, someday that kid is going to be a big league star. And he was just drawn to Schmidt. Somehow, even when Schmidt wasn't hitting at all, Lucadello just had this sense that someday it would click for the kid. He was thrilled when the Phillies drafted him, and he came to Schmidt's house to make the offer. You know, that cliche of someone writing down an offer on a piece of paper and sliding it across the table. As Michael Scott once said in the office, this is how it's done in the movies. Well, Lucadello did it with his own distinct style. He went to the trunk of his car and pulled out a typewriter. Then he came in the Schmidt home, put the typewriter on the table, and told the Schmidts to look at the paper that was wrapped inside the roller. There, these words were typed out. We're prepared to offer Mike $25,000 if he'll sign with the Phillies right now. Eventually, Mike Schmidt signed for $37,500. And he said he used about a third of that money to buy a yellow 1971 Corvette Stingray fastback. In 1989, when it actually ended up being Schmidt's final season in the big leagues, Lucadello became convinced he was no longer wanted as a scout. He had felt baseball moving away from him, and it made him feel lost. He was 75 years old, and baseball was everything. Tony, former Phillies general manager Paul Owens, told him repeatedly, you're hired for life, you know that. But Owens was no longer the GM, and Lucadello was sure the new regime was ready to put him to pasture. It used to be that way, he told Owens, but it's different now. On May 8th, 1989, Lucadello went to a high school baseball field in Toledo and shot himself. He was found dead on the field before the game that night. When Schmidt heard the news from his mother, they cried together. Without Tony Lucadello, Schmidt said, I wouldn't have been a Philadelphia Philly. I might not be in the minor leagues. You can't make it in baseball by yourself. There are so many people who nobody knows who make all the difference. You probably know that Philadelphia Philly fans never warmed up to Mike Schmidt. Check that. You probably know that Philadelphia fans booed the hell out of Mike Schmidt at various points throughout his career. It's one of the strangest relationships in baseball history. Schmidt is the greatest Phillies player ever, and it isn't even close at all. This is the list of Phillies position players, the best of them, by wins above replacement, or WAR. Mike Schmidt, 106.8. Chase Utley, 61.8. Ed Delahanty, 61.0. Richie Ashburn, 57.7. Sherry McGee, 48.1. Schmidt won 3 MVP awards. All other Phillies position players combined have won just 3 MVP awards. Chuck Klein in 32, Ryan Howard in 2006, and Jimmy Rollins in 2007. Schmidt won 8 home run titles, led the league in on-base percentage 3 times, led the league in slugging percentage 5 times, led the league in RBIs 4 times, won 10 Gold Gloves, and was the World Series MVP for the only Phillies championship team between 1883, when they were still the Philadelphia Quakers, and 2007. He is, in my view and the view of many others, the greatest third baseman in the history of baseball. He is the Phillies' best player, their second best player, and their third best player. He is what George Brett is for the Royals, what Cal Ripken Jr. is for the Orioles, what Stan Musial is for the Cardinals. And yet, Philadelphia never quite loved him. It became a cottage industry in Philadelphia to explain why the fans as a whole never embraced Schmidt. Some thought it had to do with Schmidt's 3-outcome style. He homered, he walked, and struck out about 40% of the time, which was a very high number in those days. And it could lead to monumental slumps. He went 1 for 20 in the 1983 World Series, for instance. Some thought it was simply Philadelphia being Philadelphia. It's a town that feels deeply in victory and defeat. Maybe Phillies fans booed, but they cheered loudly too. The prevailing theory was that they couldn't read him. Schmidt just didn't show much. He carried himself so unemotionally. Schmidt just did. Captain Cool, they would call him, though not with affection. And Philadelphia is a town that runs hot, a town drawn to fire, a Rocky kind of town, a Broad Street Bullies kind of town, a Larry Boa slamming his batting helmet kind of town. Captain Cool, Dan Cernofsky wrote in the Philadelphia Daily News, according to popular belief, played the game with what manager Dallas Green would call a laissez-faire attitude, devoid of all emotion, unwilling to work hard once things were out of reach. He was the kind of guy everyone felt who would send ball after ball over fences in a meaningless series against the likes of the Chicago Cubs or New York Mets, who would strike out with the bases loaded in a crucial series against the likes of the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Montreal Expos. The charge was largely false. Throughout his career, Schmidt hit better in high-leverage situations than low ones. Schmidt did have especially bad moments. He hit .063 in the 1977 NLCS, and as I mentioned, went 1 for 20 in the 1983 World Series. But they did not come from Schmidt trying too little. He was simply that sort of player who would get particularly hot or particularly cold for various stretches. If anything, it came from him trying too hard. Sure, he heard all the boos. He felt them. I act like it doesn't bother me, he would say, but like I don't hear anything the fans say, but the truth is I hear every word and it kills me. And it got to the point that he would be on the field thinking about what would happen if he struck out or booted a ball. Exactly the last thought a bat ball player needs. Blow this one, I'd think, and I need the cops to guard my house. Hey, it isn't like Philadelphia fans were all against him. He heard plenty of cheers. Some fans stayed with him through it all. You will hear them say that Philadelphia's rejection of Schmidt has been dramatically overblown. Look, they will say, that's just Philadelphia. But there's no doubt that Schmidt's particular style of play, great defense, lots of home runs, lots of walks, lots of strikeouts, relatively low batting averages, a reserved presence on the field, a breezy confidence off it, didn't fully connect with the fans. And I suspect Mike Schmidt heard hometown boos more than any other all-time great player. It's hard for me to be positive, Schmidt said, of Philadelphia as he prepared to go into the Hall of Fame, to have real good things to say about a town that never did anything for me and in general made life miserable for me. He did apologize for saying that later, and Philadelphia gave him a rousing celebration. There had been worries that he would get booed after his comment, but the crowd was thrilled that day at least. What a great day, Schmidt shouted out as he looked over the adoring crowd. I only wish that all of you could stand right here and see what I'm looking at.